Another thing from the Sue Young interview or conversation with David Bingham that I thought was really helpful for me was something that my roommate and best friend is certainly already practicing, is to, in order to deal with this process, which is the most difficult and beautiful and strange and just frankly most superlative thing a human can do or experience, in order to make that bearable, or in order to carry on with that and to frame your normal life that little me is still having, or just not little, it's all of it, the body and everything, the life you're still having, in order to make that bearable, to try to just make every day as oriented toward joy and beauty as possible, and to do what you need to do, but to make sure that you're living as little from contraction and forcing yourself and self-judgment and living in a little box that you've created for yourself, forcing yourself to do things that are not really where the flow is going, as possible to live this life, which to the outside will probably look quite surprising because everyone else in your life is likely still very attached to little me, which you are no longer exclusively living from. So everyone is used to, and in their mind, modeling and maintaining this net outside of you, of this little you, which means when you start doing things that are surprising, just a simple example, someone like in my case, being extremely academically oriented and wanting to go into studying biochemistry and wanting to go into scientific research and having this life, noticing now how I just want to do art, which is not so much of a surprise. I was doing that before as well, but to do art and to work with people, and to just orient myself toward things that I like doing and respecting my body's tendencies, and just going with that type of flow. It might be met with some resistance from the outside, though also people who really love you, though they may be surprised, which is totally natural, something unexpected happens, they will be supportive because it's obvious that you're following something truer here, something deeper and something beautiful. Because that's also something that David Bingham was saying, that I just very much resonated with, that once you're training your eye on this and you're trying to feel into, okay, what is being communicated to me as something, where is an intuition coming from? Because we are used to different types of what we often call intuition. There's something that maybe I'll tentatively call true intuition, which is coming from the void, which is coming from the truth, which is just the natural flow of the cosmos, something that is just perfect and the way it's going to be, and the path of least resistance, and this type of thing, the true thing to orient toward. And then there's something that I often misused, I think, the word intuition for, which is just a mind thing. It's just the mind interpreting and plotting something. And plotting, I used this word before, and I think it has an unnecessary violence in it because I'm trying to kind of throw it away from me, and I'm denigrating the mind and just being kind of mean to it in a way that I'm trying not to be. So that's another thing I really like about David Bingham, that he talks about invitation from the dualistic realm rather than, temptation, or he may use this word as well, but I really like his emphasis and repetitive or use, not repetitive, recurring use of the word invitation, because it's a much kinder framing that includes all of the feelings that are right about using something like temptation, or not temptation. I don't have a word right now, it doesn't matter, but the important thing is you can tell, is this your mind trying to find happiness in a dualistic realm where happiness and love cannot be found? Or the mind is just trying to give you these ideas and these plans. Plan, for example, that's immediately much less implying a viciousness, a subtle viciousness, than the word plot. So that's what I wanted to say. That's something I can use now. That you can feel, is this the mind projecting an idea and a plan with the good intention of trying to give you happiness, but unfortunately it can't? Is it this kind of thing that's motivating you to do this job, to do this whatever? Or is it the truth that is shining through, where you have dissolved and relaxed enough for it, which is ever present, to arise into your consciousness space and become an option? And this is something I'm much more able to orient myself toward now, because there's just a lot of judgment when, for example, just the topic of money is really important here, because there's always the financial pressure, being needing to be financially set up in a certain way so that you can be provided for, just in basic terms of basic needs. And now with this process happening, this is something I very much resonated with, that Sue Young was saying about her own experience, how she just doesn't want to do anything anymore, and the things that she would, for example, earn money with before, that she just cannot bring herself to do them. And I'm feeling an inclination in this direction very much as well, or not an inclination, I'm feeling that. And how there's a lot of judgment when you find yourself doing something that you love, and then the mind comes up because of these conditionings. It's not the mind's fault, it's just what it was trained to see and then interpret and then signal as a source of danger also. It's a very simple, basic mechanism, kind of, that it's seeing, oh, you were wasting your time. It puts tags on it like this. You're doing something that is not directly going to provide for you and with this need and everything. But enlightenment is not non-functional. There's a colloquial pop culture stigma, I don't know if that's the word, image that enlightenment has as this aloof person who doesn't care about anything and is in many ways just lost touch with the world and just gone into some ego, into some corner of the ego that is falsely tagged as truly spiritual, just because this person may be reading a spiritual text or following someone who claims to be in touch with these things. But the more you dissolve into the world, the more you are it and in it, and no longer feel these resistances toward doing what you need to do. And there are always answers. There's an answer to every solution, to every problem, because problems don't actually exist. So when you go to the level, it's like an equation. A blank paper is the same as x equals x, because it's just it sich aufheben. It just what's the word? There's a word from philosophy, from Hegel's Aufhebung. It's not negate. No, it doesn't matter. But so when you know that there is actually, problems don't exist. Again, I'm not claiming that I'm living from this notion or this realization all the time at all. But so when you know that no problems exist, and then you decide, okay, if I want to frame it and phrase it in a way where I'm postulating that the problem does exist, then in order to keep the equation true, every problem has a solution, an absolute solution. And this is not a joke, and this is not La La Land logic. It's just probably not the solution you think it is. So, because the mind cannot find it, that's the answer. There is a solution to everything, but it's not on the level that you are trying to answer it on and trying to solve it on. And therefore, things resolve. You have options and potentials that you very likely do not consciously know about at all. They're nascent somewhere, and they're not expressing as something that you've, made money with or gotten praise for example. They're likely just something that you secretly somewhere like or love, even. Something that opens you up. You can see it in someone's face when they're talking about something, and then they get to a topic that really just opens them up, and you can see, that's all, that is a key. And so it's stuff like this. It's training your ear to hear when the subtle click of like, oh, that opened up something. That made you sigh and relax into love. And everyone has these things. And it's learning to listen to that, which is much easier, and I think in many ways also a kinder approach, and in some ways, or in some situations, more helpful than trying to not listen to the mind, because that's something I've encountered a lot. And something also that for me has not been helpful on this whole journey of discovering the unimaginable truth. This focus on, don't listen to the mind, because I had nothing else to be listening to in that moment. So then just rejecting the mind left me in a space of, I don't know what this is. And instead, like this, there's something for you to orient toward, because otherwise you're just orienting toward your mind automatically. That's your current state of being. And then you're being told, that's not it. And of course, this dead-end situation is certainly also helpful in ways. I mean, everything along the path is that I no longer really, at this point in time, it was a path still. Nothing along the path is not helpful. Everything is a part of it. So it's hard to make the statement I'm making and be accurate about it. But I'll put it this way, for me right now, it's much more helpful, and it's just a loving experience, that's what it is, to listen in to those intuitions and to follow them rather than to vilify thought, which I'm not implying I was told to do, but people telling me about in videos and stuff about how thought is not the thing, how thought is not the truth, and all of this made my mind at that time vilify thought in a way that did not lead to opening. And to now relativize the statement about how everything is part of the path, I'm also not trying to propagate like a wishy-washy whatever thing. I do think that for every person, things will be more helpful to open up more quickly or more profoundly in order to stop suffering. And so things will resonate with different minds differently. And this is why it's important to have guidance, to have teachers. We may not be living in a context, and I'm speaking about the Western world bubble. We may not be living in a context where it's likely that you'll find a real guru and actually learn from them, go this path. But we have the internet, we have videos. I have people that I definitely would consider have been guides for me along this path. Though I never met them. And that's why I think this type of YouTube channel is really helpful also, because I'm not proclaiming to be a teacher or a guide at all. But I know that just like I've experienced as a reaction, or like, yeah, as I've experienced when watching channels that are similar to this, there is an effect that has a guiding effect, though it's not probably so much what I'm intentionally doing. The only thing I'm trying to do is just share my own process. And that in itself has a guiding function, because you can see, is this a person I resonate with? And just like now I'm saying, I've been resonating a lot with David Bingham, more than I did with, for example, the first channel that I knew about, Simply Always Awake with Angelo DeLullo, who also has helped greatly, and it was wonderful to find him as well. But I'm just feeling more attuned, for example, to the language that that David Bingham comes up with. And so I'm just another person who, for some people, it'll be really helpful to see this and listen to me specifically talk about it because of the language that I choose and my personality and whatever, the things that make me different. And then there's going to be people that are not helped by this at all. And there's going to be much fewer people that are really helped by it than people who are not. And that's great, because I am glad if I can help anyone. And though I'm not intentionally trying to, what I'm trying to do is trying to help myself along this process and to just kind of document and brainstorm and hone in on, just zoom in on insights I've had and highlight moments in which I feel like I'm in touch with something so that I can learn to orient there more. Because this is not a completely nebulous process of total free floating. I have intentions. I am trying things, though they may not be what I used to try. For example, in the past, I would have thought, oh, sit and meditate and do spiritual practices of this type. And now, I still do spiritual practices, I would very much say, though my definition of that has changed drastically because has opened very much, because I consider it, I'm much more getting to a place where just living and loving and being in touch with whatever arises in the body, whatever interaction happens with someone, seeing that as just living fully and orienting toward joy and a contentment and satisfaction just with life, a very wholesome, rich type of satisfaction. And I see that very much as a spiritual practice, orienting toward these things. And they are yielding great results in the sense that the specific way of measuring this is that, yeah, my suffering has decreased literally. Like, it's just less. I'm suffering less every day. I'm not saying that every day I'm suffering less in a linear progression, but every day nowadays I'm suffering less than I was suffering a year ago. And that is something that is worth everything.